a traditional stationery shop owner was looking at her analytics only to see declining sales numbers. And I mean, she tried everything from discounts all the way to advertising. But the results, unfortunately, were minimal until she discovered artificial intelligence solutions. Today, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence in marketing and sales. With over a decade of experience in digital transformation, we successfully help to companies to scale with artificial intelligence and automations. And I personally have a big passion scaling companies with artificial intelligence. And if you look into the industry, you can see that artificial intelligence is already reshaping, for example, the stationery and paper industry. And your competitors are likely already leveraging artificial intelligence for growth. And if you ignore artificial intelligence, you might fall behind and lose opportunities or potentially market share. I want to show a little bit of the hidden potentials where we speak of AI beyond just automation. Imagine identifying the buyer's habits or which products might be popular next season. So you can target these people specifically, where you not just send mass emails to the people, but you tailor the messages specifically to as if you send one-on-one emails. So let's say after a conference like that, you have collected a lot of data, you simply throw it to the artificial intelligence and it analyzes the data for you. So you can also see emerging trends. So you see, for example, which products might be in trend next year, so you can prepare for it. And with that, you can stay ahead of the curve. Before we dive in, I want to make sure that we get a few misconceptions out of the way. Modern AI is not necessarily super complicated anymore. Most of these actually have super easy user interfaces nowadays, where you almost can plug and play these solutions and build it almost in a week or maybe even in an afternoon. So with that and a little bit of training, your team can soon leverage this new technology as well. Also, a lot of people think that these solutions might be super expensive. And trust me, that is not necessarily the case. All of these big companies, for example, like OpenAI, they already invested these hundreds of millions of dollars into artificial intelligence. So you don't have to. All of these cloud solutions take away most of the upfront cost for your businesses, so you can start using artificial intelligence without all of the big chunk of investment upfront. And with that, you can reap a big return on investment on these artificial intelligence solutions and recover your investments very quickly. Another thing that I hear a lot is that, AI will take away the jobs of the people. Trust me, that's not the case. AI will certainly take away some of the repetitive tasks, the stuff that no one wanted to do anyway, right? So these employees can then focus on the human aspects. So you can go out, meet people, mingle in conferences like this, and that ultimately leads to higher job satisfaction as well. I wanted to touch a little bit more about this hyper-personalization aspect. How many of you have received emails where it's just hi and then maybe your first name, but then it's just a blurb that everyone receives? Most of you likely will not respond to these type of emails because it's one of the thousands. After a few seconds, you just dismiss it, delete it, or mark it as a spam. But what if you received an email where you have the impression someone sat actually down, read through your website, your mission and vision, and then maybe even timely, such as after a conference like that, sees, hey, I saw your booth right here and saw on your website that you provide product A and B. Would you be more willing and more likely to respond to these type of emails? I think so as well. And with artificial intelligence, this can save you a lot of time of this manual labor where you typically would need a big team to research all of this, send the emails, but it can do it for you and at scale. Another thing, when you advertise, for example, you don't need a big team anymore monitoring these numbers all the time because these systems run 24/7. And whenever there is, for example, a market outlier, a so-called black swan, where there is an event that didn't happen before, these systems can quickly react adjust your ad spends or your marketing efforts. So with that, you can allocate your resources where you can make the most out of it to be most relevant. And another thing to mention when it comes to content creation, I see a lot of cameras around here. So what you could do is you could leverage, for example, artificial intelligence to come up with new ideas, or sift through all of the footage that you create right now to find the gist, the juice that you really want to post, to then quickly send out the content without having a massive marketing team for that. Another thing is sales. In sales, I don't know how many people of you are directly in sales. A lot of time of that is not directly spent in selling activities. There's a lot of admin and work that is not directly related to speaking to customers and selling to them. A quick show of hands. How many of you think that these people are spending more than 20% of their time not selling, but doing stuff on the side? Okay. How about more than 50% of the time of the sales team not being spent on actual selling activities? Still have even more? How about 70%? 70? Yeah? You're actually quite close. The handle, you already gave it away. So 72% of a typical sales team's time is not spent on actually selling to people, meeting people, talking to people, but with everything else around it. So let's say you have a typical 50-hour working week. That means that only 14 hours are spent actually selling. Isn't that crazy? And when you look at it, this is how a typical sales team distributes the time. So prioritizing leads, researching the prospect, that it's somewhat relevant when you speak with them, all of the admin tasks that the sales head wants to have, all of the manual data entry. You collect thousands of the business cards here, then entering that into your systems. Quite a tedious task, and mostly done by the sales team. As well as then reaching out to the people, sending them WhatsApps, SMS, emails, whatever you need to digitally connect with them and ultimately meet them in person. We focus especially on these areas right here, highlighted in white. And conservatively speaking, I know these numbers look crazy, but conservatively speaking, we can save up to 80% of that time. Because if you look at it, prioritizing leads, is that really what your sales team should do? I think much rather that your sales team should sit down, just hit a play button, the phone will dial the people, and then you speak to them. No one really enjoys prioritizing these lists and juggling with the Excel sheets, so why have your people do it? There are better solutions to actually do it for you. And now with artificial intelligence, it can be very efficient for your team as well. But for that, you need an efficient backbone. What is the backbone of artificial intelligence? Hint, it's data. And the more structured the data is, the easier it is for these systems to actually work with it. But for that, you also need to make sure it is properly cleaned, so that not the telephone numbers are formatted all over the place. The names sometimes are all caps or weirdly spelled. Because when you receive an email and your name, for example, is all capital or hi, first name, last name, very likely you will sniff the smell of people are not really writing this themselves. It is automated. But what if it hits the tone of voice, hits the cultural differences, what we just saw in the last presentation as well, and it is culturally relevant to your company, to your country as well, and as well integrated with your systems. So that means taking into account recent interactions. For example, hey, we spoke on this and this conference last, following up to our conversation 3 weeks ago. These are all information that you have in your systems. And the better you integrate it into one holistic system, the more information it can actually take into account to make the message as timely and as relevant as possible. The technical background of what's used there is so-called APIs, Application Programming Interfaces. Most of you maybe heard of it. A lot of these tools offer that so that you don't need to use the user interface that a human will type and interact with, but it's the programs talking to each other technically. And then you connect it with databases, where these databases collect a lot of information so you can call up them later. And then think of these new digital workers like your normal team that would start fresh in your company. Let's say I would start fresh in your company today. I wouldn't know what to tell the people, right? I wouldn't have the material to send out or the tone of voice of your company. You would need to tell me. And the same thing applies to artificial intelligence. The better you train it, the more clearer your instructions are, the better your question is, the more clear your outcome is, the higher the quality of the response it generates. And that doesn't just apply to artificial intelligence, right? It also applies to any new hire. If you enable them, give them a proper onboarding, a proper briefing, all of the materials they need, they will do a better job ultimately. And with that, we jump into connecting and streamlining your operations. These automations can be done without writing a single line of code. I know the paper industry is a rather traditional industry, so maybe some of you are a bit shying away from all of the IT stuff in the background. But just imagine, without writing a line of code, you could build these automations. I'll give you an example. This is literally one of the interfaces we use and give to our customers to build AI-based automations. You can see here, right? You can see here on this side, Gmail trigger. That means whenever you receive an email, most of us nowadays use Google's email tool, Gmail. So whenever there is a new email coming in, something needs to be done. Same like when a normal employee would sit in front of a computer, oh, ding, a little one comes, and you need to respond to an email. Same thing. Then all of a sudden you need to react. And same applies to that system. And then here's this AI module. This should assess if this message needs a reply. Maybe it's just a newsletter. Who responds to newsletters? No one. So this system is specifically trained to see, does this message need a reply? For example, hey, Julian, we set for a meeting tomorrow. That should need a reply. And then a lot of you have heard of OpenAI or ChatGPT. These models are so intelligent that when you give it an email and a clear instruction where you say, I only respond to email like this, this, this. I do not respond to this, this, this. And if you respond, tell them about this, but don't tell them about that. This is what this little module does right here. And you can train it technically with normal language like you would a new employee. This is a little bit technical. It's so-called JSON parser, which comes back to clean data. Because if the response the model gives back is sometimes structured in one way and sometimes structured in a different way, it can mess up the next automation flow, which means that you should give it a clear structure how it should respond. And that's the so-called parser for your output. Then let's say it says needs response equals true or false. This is where this part here then goes, okay, it needs a reply. If it doesn't, the automation is done. But if it does, you go into the next model right here where it says generate an email reply. And here we come back to the point, the more integrations it has, the better it is trained and the more information it is available to the system, the more timely and more relevant these emails can be done. And once again, you use the same chat model to create the text for you. And ultimately, because I know most of you will be scared sending out random emails that are not written by someone, it can create it as a draft in your email inbox. So you still have your emails, you can read over it. The draft is already prepared like an assistant did it for you. And then you can click, okay, this is fine, I send it. Oh, here I need to adjust a little thing and send it. But now you're just editing. You're reviewing things. You're no longer drafting these from scratch because frankly, no one really wants to do that, right? And that brings us to the next point. Clean data equals better outcomes. When you improve not just the content of, let's stick with the example of an email, but also the quality of the recipient. Because a lot of you in marketing might measure open rates or response rates, but the most marketers are actually forgetting the metric before open rates, deliverability. Because if you never receive the email in the first place, how can you open it? And that's once again where clean data comes in. If you have email addresses formatted at gmail.com .bomb, yeah, not .com. Then all of a sudden the email doesn't arrive, even though you put the time and effort into writing it. But if it is sent to the wrong email recipient, it doesn't do its job. And I'm not sure if you heard of it, but beginning of 2024 in February, Google and Microsoft became a lot more stringent with their spam filters. If I send out emails, let's say I attended a conference 10 years ago and I just want to spam this list because I was there, might as well use it. And let's say 10% of these emails are no longer existent. Maybe companies don't exist anymore. Maybe they have a new domain. The people where you collected the email address don't work there anymore. Then the email bounces. Maybe you send an email here and there where you get this error message back. It looks a bit annoying in your inbox, but it's actually really, really bad for your domain authority, because now Google learned, wow, you send emails, we don't even know the person anymore. And then they might classify you as a spam or don't deliver it at all. And that is very important. There is a process for it called debouncing. Bouncing is the technical term of when an email is sent and it bounces back, similar to when you throw a ball to a wall and it bounces back. Same applies to the email. Then these systems have vast databases. And little hint, when you try to log into Google with your email address, if you enter an email address that exists in the system, it will guide you to the next page where it shows you and asks for the password. If it doesn't do that, it says, oh, email doesn't exist. You don't even need to send it because it is not there. And that's technically what these systems do at a larger scale for you, so you don't have to do that manually. And with that, you can imagine that the quality of your emails will be a lot better. Another thing, it's not just for mass emailing. Let's say you have a lot of transactional emails. You want to fulfill your orders. But now, unfortunately, your marketing team was bombarding emails no longer existent. And now all of your emails from your company's domain are landing in spam. Now, all of a sudden, your customers don't get their updates anymore, or your sales follow-ups with people who you are actually in contact with, because unfortunately, your domain is on a so-called blacklist. Not so fun. That's the reason why we employ, when we use marketing strategies, so-called burner domains, which are similar to your main domain. So instead of using, for example, the Scale Company AI, we use getscalecompany.com, tryscalecompany.com. Because if these get burnt, hell, then I just create 10 new ones. That's not so important. But don't forget to forward them, because in case people are checking these domains, that they still know who it is sending it. That is so-called sender deliverability and response rates. Then another thing is when you send emails to so-called risky domains. So everyone, in case you don't have the domain, tries the info at or the CEO at. Maybe it works. But when you debounce and clean the data, you can make sure that either it can be confirmed that these emails do exist, then you send it to them. Or if it doesn't appear to be there, these databases maybe have a different email. So by searching by the name and the company, maybe it's not j.wayland, but maybe it's julian.wayland, and it has it in the database. So then it can give it back to you, and the lead is not lost. And another thing is, let's say you collect a business card here, or you scan my badge that I'm currently not wearing. You have the email address, maybe a company name. But most of you don't have the job titles, how many employees does the company have, what's the growth rate, what's the profitability, all of these numbers. Maybe where they're in the news, good or bad. These are all information that artificial intelligence can easily research for you. So in your customer relationship management systems, these data are all in one central place, and then once again can be used later for the email outreach from your systems. This is how it looks effectively in practice. So you see here, we have different emails, different companies collected, and now we want to enrich if these are actually valid emails. It looks technically like an Excel spreadsheet where you then see, okay, this first database didn't find any emails. No worries. There are 70 more databases. That's just a question of price, right? So you can see, oh, the second email has it. And for example, here for Hen, this email wasn't found. Okay, then we go to the next one and the next one. And the more databases you connect to it, the more likely is it that you will find a relevant email, right? And this is one of the aspects of cleaning the data with artificial intelligence. This video, by the way, was in real time recorded. So you see how fast it is. And it's doing it for all of the rows at the same time. This example maybe had 10 rows, but imagine doing that with 10,000 rows, 100,000 rows. If you need to do that yourself, you'll be sitting there until next year. Another thing, let's say you want to learn about a conference. In the past, you were just Googling it, spending some time, seeing some blog articles, seeing some websites. Nowadays, some of you might have started using ChatGPT where you ask these questions to a chat, right? But let's say it's not just one step asking a question or that system doesn't know the answer, but you much rather need to go on a competitor's website, see what is their product, what is their price point, are they speaking on a conference where you might also need to speak, are they exhibiting somewhere where you also need to exhibit, are they now having a partnership with someone where it's also worth talking about partnerships. This information would require a little bit more stringent process. Maybe you remember the Gmail example I just gave you. This is literally the same tool, just a little bit more advanced, where you go through step by step and see which websites, for example, would need to be scraped, so you get all of the data from it, processed, and then used for your outreach. With that, you can track, for example, industry news, because when you're busy, you can't scan all of the 100 news sources out there. So instead, you can just ask it to scrape it for you. And if there's something relevant, it can send you an email, or it can somehow inform you in however you would like to receive that information. It could also aggregate social media. You don't have much time to spend, Twitter or which other news source is relevant for you. So it could do it for you and then present it as if there was a dedicated person doing it for you. You could also aggregate the information. Let's say you send out an email blast to 100,000 people and you get 1,000 responses. Typically, these people are very impatient and they want a response pretty much yesterday. So with that, you could prioritize the leads into which of them actually want to have a meeting, which of them request more information, who tells you to stay away and never contact them again. Imagine this system was sorting it already for you, so you don't have to. And that's what's now possible with classifying artificial intelligence-based emails or any other outreaches. Or they submit a request for proposal or request for information or a contact form on your website. All of this input could easily be used, classified, and then, for example, if it's a complaint, automatically routed to your complaints department. Or if it's a sales inquiry, automatically guided to your sales department. Or if the AI did some background research and sees, oh, this is one of the key players and we actually wanted to get in touch with them, prioritize it so that, for example, the head of sales is directly reaching out to them. It's just a matter on what do you want it to be done. It's no longer a question of can it be done. It can be done. And with that, you can minimize human error, you can save a lot of time, and you can frankly increase the profitability of your company. Also, when it comes to data analysis, we typically try to understand it with our human brains, but maybe sometimes there are correlations, so relations between the data that you can't directly understand. So by throwing it into artificial intelligence, it could see links or trends that with a human manual labor, you might not be able to see even if you spend a lot of time doing it. To see, for example, future pricing trends, future product trends. And with that, you can have a lot better marketing strategies. Your new market entry can be a lot faster if you use these AI agents for your strategic planning. I now mainly spoke about email, but you can imagine that you can pretty much use any other signal for that as well. Here is a quick overview of the main intent signals, which means, for example, you have on your website brochures that you want to download. And let's say I'm shopping on your website and every 2 days I'm downloading a brochure. Maybe it's worth for you to reach out to me. That is one of the signals here with data downloads. Or there's a major industry news. So you could, for example, whenever there is news about one of your major clients, reach out to them and say, hey, congratulations, I just saw you in the press. Makes a very good impression, even though you didn't spend the time following them or reaching out to them, but it was done for you automatically. So that means you can focus your efforts where they matter the most. You can identify high potential leads as they come in. Let's say you have your booth running right here, and someone is scanning the badge of a very promising company that you wanted to reach out to. It looks somewhat like this, similar to the email verification table that I just showed you. Whenever there is an inbound lead, for example, someone submitted a form on your website or submitted the lead on one of the tablets, for example, here on a booth, or scanning the badge. We can do the same enrichments, which means one column is effectively one enrichment. See who is the CEO, check if they are in the press, see if there's anything relevant. Maybe we have common contacts where we can say, hey, I saw you also do business with company XYZ, or hey, you also know person XYZ. So with that, you can make it a lot more personal, a lot more relevant for the people. And then, depending on which customer relationship management, or CRM for short, you use, let's say HubSpot, this information can be pushed directly into it and be used by your marketing and sales team. Kind of cool, right? And then another thing, going back to the example of my initial point, you can engage with the customers as if you're speaking with them one-on-one. No longer the mass outreaches, or you have a list and the list is static. Let's say a customer just got a big round of funding. Now maybe they qualify to buy from you. But unfortunately, in the old system, they're still in the dismissed leads category. Now imagine these systems could see all of the lists, scan them every day, and see maybe some of them do qualify now to recover potential lost sales opportunities, where you then activate them once again. Or based on recent email interactions or any other advertising interactions, marketing interactions, you could reach out to them and make it super, super specific to them. Imagine someone was reading your website, seeing a product, saying, hey, this is exactly what I was looking for. Would you be interested in a partnership? Or you see, for example, a supplier, and you see there is a competitor who offers pretty much the same product, but it's a bit cheaper, entering into price renegotiations, all automatically. And these are just a few examples how you could use mass personalization at scale. That means that you send thousands of different emails tailored as if it was sent for one specific person. And with that, you can also create chatbots. Yeah, it's not just in your systems. A lot of you may have heard that on a website, it automatically knows, oh, this is my recent order. Let's say you order something online, you enter your email address, and it's like, was this related order with this and this? Because that was what's connected with the system. And now you can automatically give status updates, and not just in this robotic way, like your order ID was placed on date and date, but playing a little bit with the tone of voice of the company. If the customer is using very elaborate English, we also write very elaborate. If they are not so good in English and they're struggling with English, you use very simple language. This all can be very easily adjusted. Another thing I wanted to point out, let's say you do outreach via LinkedIn or any other data source where you have structured data. A lot of these conferences also provide you with a lot of personalized information. So you could see, for example, here's my profile on LinkedIn. You see my about section, what I stand for, my role, my company, and then you have your marketing message that you want to send out. This is a very basic example where I say, hi, first name, for example, hi, Julian. And then you don't say, is there anyone in sales that I could reach out to? Imagine this system checks on LinkedIn, who's the head of sales, who's the sales manager who's relevant for me, and then plugs in the name. Hi, is Peter Parker the right person to speak to in your company? All of a sudden you think, wow, this person really did their research, might be worth a response. Because ultimately it's a numbers game, right? The more emails you send out and the more people respond, the higher the chances that ultimately you will make a sale. And this is just a very basic example of filling one person in there. Now imagine writing the whole paragraph, yet alone the whole email, individualized to that specific lead, based on the best practices of your top performing sales reps. That means that whenever you find out, hey, this conversation or this topic works better, now all of a sudden with a push of a button, you can use it for all conversations in the future. So you can craft emails, you can craft ads, all based on that information you receive from that. And with that, also deliver consistent brand messaging all across your channels. Because we're all humans. The marketing department who manages social media will ultimately write a little bit differently than the email marketing team or the brochures that are written. And with this solution, ultimately, you can make sure that your brand tone is consistent across all channels. Going back again to the contacts. Every contact that you meet here, every contact you speak with is a potential relevant sales opportunity for you. And it starts already by capturing the email or getting the business card and typing it into your systems. If it is, for example, with a typo, you lost that contact. If you switch the numbers on the phone number and 4 years later you try to call them and the phone number doesn't work anymore, it's lost. So you can ensure that you don't have these issues when you use something called optical character recognition, where you just scan in the business cards and it adds it to your system, even enriches it. And also, for example, adding these fields where you have, for example, the job title, the industry, the market size, the product catalog already in the system, so you don't need to search all of that manually. And then this attendee information, for example, let's say here's someone on the conference, you just scan their badge. Typically, only once the conference ended, you go back to headquarters, give them the business cards, only then, maybe 4 or 5 days after the conference, people reach out to you. But what if someone sends you that 15 minutes later or 5 minutes later? Hey, we just spoke about it. Really cool. I just wanted to drop you a line. That opens up the conversation, maybe potentially leading to the sale while still being on the conference. So that means you can respond a lot faster and a lot smarter because you have all of the background research done in minutes, not in days or months or whenever you have time for it. And that distinguishes your company from your competitors who are not using that solution. And once again, you can also see that person that I just scanned the badge, for example. Is that a relevant buyer for me? Is that a relevant supplier or a partner for me? Or is it just a waste of time blocking my sales team? With these solutions, you can be very, very efficient, and you can also route these people directly to the relevant teams. Let's say you are globally dispersed, you have a team in America, you have one in Europe and one here in the Middle East. With these solutions, you could directly send it to the salespeople, create them tasks to follow up, or send it to them in time zones where you otherwise would be sleeping. That all can be done with the power of artificial intelligence. You can have very prompt action. Same with the example of the chatbot that I told you earlier about it, where you have the customer experience. Frankly, a lot of people in conferences speak about the power of chatbots, but then when you try to use them on the other end, you hate it and you just try to get around it and try to speak with a live agent. I have the feeling that this is changing because you were in the past only trying to avoid these systems because they were crappy and they didn't use any relevant information. They just tried to brush you away with the frequently asked questions. But what if, 3 a.m. in the morning, you want to have an information, hey, I saw your product XYZ, does it also do this? And that is properly trained like your best customer rep. All of a sudden, it's not so bad because you have your answer in a few seconds and it's even there on the spot 24/7 around the clock. If it's properly implemented, integrated, and the relevant information, all of a sudden, these systems will be used a lot more and the company is saving a lot of time and efforts into fulfilling these requests. Plus, these systems right now are fluent in over 45 languages. So let's say someone is not so proficient in English, but let's say, for example, in Hindi or in German. Then this system, because it is trained on your information maybe in English, can also respond in a different language. And that's the power of it. I wanted to also touch base not just of opening conversation, but also following up on conversations. Let's say you have a meeting. We speak about, I want to potentially buy from you. Ultimately, your sales rep will want to update your systems. Who is the decision maker? What did you talk about? How do they make their decisions? What is the actual pain that we're trying to solve here? Do I need a champion in the company who lobbies for me to actually go for my solution? All of that synced into your so-called CRM system, giving you back over 10 hours per week. So that means that you finally can spend the evening with the family or have the weekend off. Plus, the customer has a lot faster response times. I brought you a little demo here as well, how these meeting follow-ups could look like. So let's say after we both had a meeting just now, I want to send you a follow-up email looking like this. Hi, John. Hey, it was great speaking with you. This is what we discussed. Here are our next steps. And you see all of the summaries here, for example, the buying signals, what is the current status without rewatching 1 hour of a meeting, seeing all of our conversations and how long everyone spoke, if they are distracted, if they're engaged, all of this information for your head of sales easily available, also to send up the follow-up emails right there and then, without needing to type a single word of that. Wouldn't that be amazing? We offer a lot of these solutions, not just these customized AI solutions where I was focusing a lot of email today because I think that's the most easy to understand for a presentation in a short time frame like that, but also lead scoring, automated workflows, AI meeting summaries like I just showed you, or setting up all of the groundwork to use systems like that. So ultimately you can use machines, for example, like this, where you find your leads, you scrape databases where a lot of your potential buyers would be in. That's this part here, where you select your database. Hey, everyone in Google Maps. Let's say you address schools. Okay, why don't I go to Google Maps, search for schools in this area where my sales team is currently working on, and building these lists. Then finding, for example, just companies or private universities or whoever is your target audience, and then setting targeting criteria. So you're not wasting your time and effort on people who might not be relevant for your business. Then you score these companies and these leads, where you say, if I only had time to approach 10 people today, who would it be? And I don't waste the time on prioritizing the leads and finding them, but the system, as I told you earlier, can do it for you. Another thing are these sales signals. Remember these 4 boxes? For example, that person was downloading this information or checking my website or my pricing page or my team page multiple times. This is all information that you gathered using automations that can now be used in your marketing and your sales efforts, as well as then personalizing that in your email copy or even retargeting ad campaigns on, let's say, Instagram or Facebook. With this, you can also filter, for example, companies. Hey, has company so-and-so published any open jobs for sales in the last 30 days? It gives you that table. Because if they're looking for more salespeople, likely the company is expanding. Maybe it's worth for you to reach out to them. So you can use all of these signals and connect it with your infrastructure. Let's say the AI is writing an email, and by using one formulation, all of a sudden the conversion rate, which means that the people who are opening it or the people who are replying to it, is a little bit better. All of a sudden it will use that as their new baseline. Yeah, so let's say previously it was opening 6%, now it's opening it with 7%. Cool. Now we use this as our new benchmark. Then we alter maybe the headline, maybe the title, and now it's 6.5. Not so good. Okay, then we go back to the first part. Or all of a sudden it's 7.2. So you got a little bit better. Maybe some of you have heard of the Kaizen, where you have this continuous improvement, but now at scale and automated. Another thing you can do is so-called multi-channel outreach, which means that you send me 15 very well-written emails, but unfortunately I don't read my emails. Or maybe I forgot my password to my emails. But you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, for example, or on Instagram. So you could build sequences where you say, send email number 1, and then wait 3 days, not to spam the people. If they don't respond to email, maybe I try sending them an SMS. And if that doesn't work, hell, I send them a written letter, because who does that nowadays? So you can use multiple channels, and then once you do get a response, you can classify these responses here based on the categorization. For example, is the person interested? Cool. Do they want a meeting? Yes, direct them to the sales team. No, they just want more information. Okay, send them more information. Are they not interested? Then send them to another warm-up sequence or ultimately dismiss them. That means that your people don't spend time working with opportunities that might not convert. That means that when you previously had a sales team of, let's say, 100 people, now maybe 50 can do it. Or without hiring additional 100 people, you can have the same power like 200 people. And that helps your company ultimately to really scale without breaking the bank. And then ultimately, when you have this centralized customer relationship management system, all of these informations are then fed back into that one centralized hub where all of the information is stored so you can use it for your next sales or marketing campaign. With that, a quick overview how you can transition from tradition to transformation using artificial intelligence. Thank you so much.